We are going to show the basics of making enchiladas and how to cut the cost of an enchilada recipe in this video. These enchiladas cost 32 cents per person, 2 enchiladas per serving, or in other words, 16 cents per enchilada. There is a link to the changes made down below in the description box. The original recipe is taken from a chicken enchilada recipe by Inspired Taste, and I will share a link in the description box for that as well. There are basically 3 parts of this meal: the tortillas, the filling, and the sauce. I made my own tortillas for this recipe, but you don't have to if you don't want to. The total cost for the 8 tortillas was 13 cents. Corn tortillas may work better for you, but you will have to add another 5 to 10 cents for each enchilada. The tortilla ingredients are flour, baking powder, salt, oil, and water. There will be a link for the recipe below. You mix the dough. This is only 1/4 of the recipe I usually use. Divide the dough into 8 parts. Cover the dough with a cloth. Roll them out one at a time with a rolling pin, and then fry them in a hot pan until they have light brown spots on each side. This takes about a couple minutes on each side, depending on how hot your pan is. Set them aside while you finish the filling in the sauce. Instead of chicken, I used a can of refried beans and rice for the filling. This can of refried beans was free, but if you don't have them, there are options. If you have a can of pinto beans, you can rinse and drain them and then put them in your food processor for a couple minutes until they look like refried beans. If you don't have a food processor, try mashing them with a fork or just keep them whole if you don't mind eating them that way. You can also use dry pinto beans to make your own refried beans, which would cost less than either of those 2 options. I would make them the day before though, since they take a lot of time. Put your beans and a cup of cooked rice into a bowl. I usually add a little enchilada sauce to this for flavor, but you don't have to. Mix the filling ingredients together in your bowl. Well, let's move on to the sauce. There's a link to the enchilada sauce recipe, which only costs 20 cents to make with the substitutions. You basically start out with oil and flour as you would when you make a gravy. After adding the rest of the ingredients, you stir until it thickens a little bit. I made a couple of substitutions to lower the cost of the recipe. The first is using ketchup instead of tomato paste. Most people have ketchup in their homes. While tomato paste isn't too expensive, it's a little bit frustrating to try to figure out what to do with the rest of the can when you only use a little bit of it. I also used water instead of chicken broth or bouillon, and I used white vinegar instead of apple cider vinegar because it's more common. I also left out the coriander since most people don't have that in their home. You have your 3 ingredients now: sauce, filling, and tortillas. Now you want to put them together to make the enchiladas. Put a little bit of sauce in the bottom of your pan. Some people dip corn tortillas in the sauce first before filling, but this will make your tortillas very soggy if you do it with flour tortillas. Put your filling inside and roll it up. Place them in your pan, seam side down. You can use a 9x13 pan or whatever you have available to fit 8 enchiladas. I use 2 pans here. Place the rest of the sauce over the top of your enchiladas. Cover it with foil and bake for 15 minutes at 350 degrees. Then take off the foil and bake for another 10 to 15 minutes. Let them cool and enjoy them. Recipes and substitutions are linked in the description box below. You can make your enchiladas any way you want with any or all of the substitutions.